Hungary. Wait. Ale. Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So the Olympic qualification period is over, so I thought I'd do a bit of a rundown of who we will see in Paris, starting with the teams. If you are unfamiliar with the qualification system, qualifying a team is really important because it gives that country 3 places in the individual event. The top 4 in the ranking qualify, then the top European, Asian, Pan American and African teams qualify. Before I get into it, I just want to say that we do know what teams will be going, but not all countries have actually made their official selections yet. So I'm going to have to do a bit of guesswork here and we'll probably get a few things wrong. A fencing team has 4 fencers, but only 3 get to do the individual event, so there can be a bit of drama sometimes over who will be the 4th fencer. There's also the annoying Olympic rules that mean that if you can't use your substitute and the team wins a medal, then that fencer won't get a medal, as was the case with Onstedt in 2008. It means that there is an added dilemma of whether you should use your sub or not. I also, for some reason, seem to remember, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a special rule at the Olympics that means once you use your sub, then they have to stay on for the rest of the competition, which is kind of ridiculous, but I do seem to remember that being the case for some reason. Anyway, here are the teams. Korea have been dominant in Sabre for the last 2 Olympic cycles. They first proved themselves as a top team in 2012 when they won the Team Sabre at London, a landmark moment in modern fencing. Between 2017 and 2022, they have won 4 World Championships in a row, as well as the Olympics in 2021. Following this result, the team were treated almost like a K-pop boy band in Korea, as they made many media appearances together, and some even signed with talent agencies. However, since then, 2 of the Avengers have dropped out of the team. Legendary veteran Kim Jong-un has been struggling to maintain his former standards as age is catching up with him. And Kim Jun-ho retired from international duties to spend more time with his family, run a club and create a TV show. On paper, Korea should be the most vulnerable they have been for a long time, but even with all the squad changes they have had, they are still performing really strongly as a team. In my opinion, at his best, Oh Sang-uk is one of the most perfect fencers out there. Technically sublime, physically imposing, mentally strong, and a really great role model for how to behave respectfully in competitions. He appeared on a circuit back in 2014, a complete unknown who had never even competed in junior international competitions, and immediately took the world by storm. He had a dominant spell around the last Olympic cycle, but since then has struggled with injury. Once the rookie of the team, now he finds himself as one of the most senior fencers, one of the last Avengers, so maybe there is some added pressure now. Gu Bongil might be the most influential fencer of the last 20 years, driving the shift away from tentative preparations towards full-on, off-the-line attacks. He has one of the strongest World Cup records and was part of a team that won the Olympic title back in London 2012. However, age seems to be catching up with him, and for the first time since 2009, he has actually dropped out of the top 16 in the FIE rankings. I'm not 100% sure who the 3rd and 4th places will be, so I'm kind of guessing here. In 3rd, I'm putting Do. I've been very bullish on him. I really like his fencing. He's not had too many super amazing results in individual, but he is very consistent. So far in his career, he has only failed once to make the second day of a World Cup, which is really impressive and the kind of consistency that you want in a team fencer. Again, I'm not too sure if a selection has been made yet, so it is possible that the Koreans take a more experienced fencer like Ha Han-sol, but based off their usual team list from this season, I think it will be Park Sang-won. Park won the University Championships in 2023, but other than a last 16 in Padua, he's been struggling on the World Cup circuit to make any big impact. Having said that, when he has a team behind him, he suddenly becomes a different beast and has played a big role in a lot of Korea's big team wins this season. At the end of the last Olympic cycle, the USA's prospects weren't looking great. Whilst Eli Dershowitz was still getting decent results, their star fencer and Rio 2016 silver medalist Darrell Homer has been on a steady decline, and they've often struggled to find third or fourth fencers with enough X factor to challenge for medals. However, since then, a couple of very strong generations of young American fencers have burst onto the scene, making the USA not only a strong contender for the Paris Olympics, but potentially also the following Olympics at home in Los Angeles. At this point, Eli Dershowitz has got to be up there as one of, if not the greatest American fencers in men's sabre. He was the first American male sabre fencer to win the overall FIE Series title in the 2017-18 season, and last season he once again made history by winning the world title in Milan. A unique and incredibly versatile left-hander, Dershowitz is going to be a force to reckon with in Paris. In one word, prodigy. Colin Heathcock initially hit the international scene under the German colours, but switched to the USA in 2022. Something of a world citizen, having trained in China, the USA, and more recently in France, where he is part of a prestigious Bauer Academy. By the age of 18, he has already won 2 Senior World Cups and still has one more season remaining as a junior. Heathcock will win Olympic medals, I can promise you that. It's not a question of if, but when. This is one of the all-time greats in the making. 2 things come to mind when I think of Mitchell Sarin. The first is his counter-riposte. I haven't counted him, but I'm pretty sure he has scored the most touches like this out of anyone over the last couple of seasons. But the other thing that comes to mind is the ongoing bout manipulation concerns. Last season, when Sarin made his senior international breakthrough, he was frequently refereed by Bulgarian referee Vasil Melenchev, and occasionally some interesting calls would go his way.
Premier pare, no riposte. Reprise contre-attaque, no pare. Point. Yes, en garde. Prêt. Allez. Tous les deux, attaque, contre-attaque sur la blade. Reprise d'attaque, reprise contre-attaque. Reprise d'attaque, touche pas.
According to the New York Times, the CEO of USA Fencing even sent a letter to the FIE expressing concern over the refereeing of Sarin's bouts. All 4 fencers on this team are either former, current or future Harvard fencers. This includes Filip Dolegievich, who has had some impressive results this season, notably a bronze in Seoul. I feel like in previous seasons he might have prioritised his college fencing, I'm not sure, but this season he has really turned it on when it mattered in order to make it onto this strong Olympic team. Hungary versus Korea has become a classic matchup in men's sabre. The Koreans have beaten them 3 times in World Championship finals, but the Hungarians finally got their revenge last year in Milan, winning them their first world title in over 15 years. What's interesting about this team is that it has remained pretty much unchanged for the last 10 years. So whilst they have a very stable dynamic right now, I wonder how things will change in the coming Olympic cycles. This fencer should need no introduction whatsoever. He's got to be up there as one of the greatest sabre fencers of all time. His name is synonymous with technical excellence and grace. After his World Championship victory in 2022, the only title that he hasn't won is the Team Olympic Gold. It's crazy that the winner of the last 3 Olympics is going into his 4th, once again, as one of, if not the favourite. There's got to be something absolutely terrifying about fencing him at the Olympics, given that he has gone 15 bouts undefeated at the Olympic Games. Having said that, he does sometimes bomb out early, but I can't see the refereeing calls going against him as they did here, for example. Sotmari is another poster child for Hungarian technical excellence and elegance. He was the 2017 World Champion and won his second World Cup recently in Budapest. I think it's interesting that when we talk about big lunges, it's often the Koreans that get talked about first, but Sotmari has some pretty insane reach too. Gemeshi might have been outshone by the other two on his team, but he is someone any aspiring fencer can really look up to. In my opinion, he is a model professional in the way he carries himself on the piste. In a sport where tensions are often very high and things can quickly escalate, I've always felt that Gemeshi does a really good job of keeping a level head and acting with dignity and respect. In many ways, Deci is a fencing anomaly. Firstly, he is 41 years old, well past the expiration date of the typical Sabre fencer. Secondly, he's just kind of weird. Hungarian fencers often have this almost cookie cutter feel to them, like a balanced guard position, controlled preparations, etc. Deci is really his own thing. There was never a fencer like him, and I don't think there ever will be. I've been really excited about this French team for a while. I'm probably a bit biased, but I feel France has produced some of the most innovative and creative young fencers, and now we are seeing them mature into top seniors. After a very strong period in the 2000s, the French team went through a bit of a dark age in the 2010s, struggling to climb the rankings. But finally, with a fresh injection of young talent, they are back to being contenders for major titles. If you want to get to know these fencers, I really recommend watching this video documentary I did where I followed their journey at the last World Championships and interviewed them all. One interesting thing about this team is traditionally all the French fencers train together at the National Training Centre. But currently they are all split into 3 different camps, some staying put, some went to work with Bauer and some went to work with Orsted. But from my understanding, despite all these splits, they still get on very well and there's not really any beef between the fencers when it comes to fencing on a team. At the age of 38, Apiti is the veteran of the French team. A perfect balance of aggression and control, always balanced and stable. One of the few fencers left to always have one foot on the piste, proper footwork. None of this bouncing malarkey. At his best, he will win things, having won 3 major international titles so far. However, I do feel he might struggle with the pressure of the big events, having never medalled at the World Championships and having lost his first bout at both of his previous Olympics. It will also probably be his last competition ever as a fencer, so that might add some additional pressure. If you follow this channel, then you will have seen quite a bit of Sébastien Patrice already. I feel like he's a bit of a polarising fencer. He has a pretty unique style. Like a lot of French fencers of his generation, they kind of took many aspects of the Korean fencers and made them their own. Some people don't really like it. I personally like it a lot. He regularly makes the last 8 and has 2 bronze medals so far. But I do think he's someone that really thrives in team events, and he's one of those crazy people who actually enjoys fencing in the final relay. In 2022, Maxime Pianfetti showed his potential as a contender for major titles when he won a silver medal at the World Championships, losing by the finest of margins to Siladi in the final. Another young and unique fencer. Sometimes it feels like he has Inspector Gadget arms, the way he can reach so far. He won another silver medal earlier this season, showing that he might be able to use the home crowd to his advantage in Paris. The 4th fencer will either be Jean-Philippe Patrice or Tom Sates, depending on how the next World Cup in Madrid goes. Both fencers have fenced on the team a fair amount. And interestingly, at the last team event in Budapest, France picked a team with none of their top 3 fencers and still managed to finish 5th. So I think it's fair to say that they have some decent depth to pick from. Either should be a solid choice, I think. The Italian team is in a really interesting place right now. They have a lot of young talent coming through in the likes of Gallo and Torre, but then they also have experience in Samele, Bere and Curatoli. However, it might make the selections a bit tricky, with 5 fencers in contention for selection. They won silver in Tokyo, and barring Aldo Montano, they could potentially send the same team pretty much. To me, it kind of feels like they are in a bit of a transitional phase, waiting for the younger fencers to mature fully and the older fencers to retire. But I think they still are a major medal contender here. After his silver medals won in both the individual and team event at Tokyo, I was kind of expecting Samele to maybe do a couple of World Cups, then retire on a high. But no, at 36 years old, he is still going and still winning World Cup medals. There's kind of an effortlessness to Samele's fencing. He can move quickly when he needs to, but a lot of the time he has this relaxed, almost casual way of fencing. His partner is Olga Kharlan, who will be representing Ukraine in the women's sabre. Luca Curatoli has been in the top 16 for a long time now. His last couple of seasons haven't been his best, but he's still a contender for the top spots. He has won a silver medal in Budapest recently, and I feel like he's probably one of the hardest fencers in the world to parry. He's left-handed and has quite an interesting way of hitting with his hand really wide, getting some really big angles. This will be his second Olympics. In Tokyo he lost in the first round in the individual event, but won a silver medal with the team. Currently 22 years old, Gallo established himself last season as a top fencer, winning the Trofeo Luxardo in Padua and a bronze at the Warsaw World Cup. He's one of the newer generations of Italians who have been fighting for a place on the team. He's fairly compact, balanced, he has a really strong hand. This will be his first Olympics, but he has experience on the finals piste already, so I think he can deal with the pressure. Italy will have to choose between youth and experience here for the sub. Enrico Bere is a strong fencer with plenty of medals under his belt. He was on a team that won silver in Tokyo, but he's since had to come back from injury. Pietro Torre is one of the future stars of Italian sabre. At 22 years old, he's already won a couple of bronze medals, and I kind of get strong Aldo Montano vibes from his fencing style. I'm not sure whether the selection has already been made or not, but it would be a hard choice.
Committing and going out hard, and again Bazadze decides.
Sometimes there is a big rift in quality between the African team and the rest at the Olympics. With Egypt, that is certainly not the case. They have a strong set of individuals led by current world number 2 Ziad El Sisi, as well as coaching from Vincent Anstedt. Despite their individual results, I feel like they have kind of underperformed as a team, rarely making it into the last 8 at World Cups. Nonetheless, they still have the quality to beat any team in the world and could cause some interesting upsets in Paris. Ziad El Sisi has been one of the biggest breakthrough fencers in the last Olympic cycle. He's always shown potential, but now he has become one of the major contenders for an Olympic medal. He recently won his first major title in Seoul and has climbed up to second in the world ranking. He coaches and trains in the USA at Tim Morehouse Fencing Club alongside fencers like Eli Dershowitz and Filip Nolegiewicz. The younger of the two Moataz brothers, Adham, was on the Egyptian team that won the Junior World Championships in 2021. As a senior, he has continued to impress, making 4 World Cup top 8s and climbing into the top 16 in the world rankings. Moataz currently trains under Vincent Anstedt alongside the Patrice brothers and Maxime Pianfetti. This will be a 3rd Olympic Games for Mohamed Amer, which is quite a few considering he's only 26 years old. He's also based in the USA with El Sisi and is a regular in the second day of World Cups. He's one of those fencers that doesn't often go super far in competitions but can still beat absolutely anyone. At the last Olympics in Tokyo, he beat Daryl Homer of the USA to make the last 16. I think Medhat Moataz will probably be the fourth fencer for Egypt. He was on the team as a sub in Tokyo, so this will be his second Olympics, but he's been struggling to make it to the second day at World Cups so far. Iran have been Korea's main rival in Asia for a while now, and after Tokyo I kind of expected them to drop off a bit, what with the retirement of Mojtaba Abedini and the rise of Japan. But I was completely wrong. Iran have continued to be one of the top teams and comfortably staved off the growing competition in Asia to qualify for another Olympic Games. They have also recruited Christian Boer as their coach, which has got to give him the record of the highest number of different nationalities coached at the Olympic Games, surely. Pak Daman is the leader of his Iranian team and is currently enjoying the best season of his career. Currently he's ranked 3rd in the world. He is big, imposing, and he hits like a train. At Tokyo he wasn't too far off from a medal. He lost to Silagi in the last 8. He also won the Asian Championships last season, so he has shown that he can perform on the big stages. Another big imposing fencer, Rabhari, generally finishes in the last 64 or 32 of World Cups. In Tokyo he made the last 16, beating Apeti, and interestingly both Rabhari and Pak Daman have a decent record against Apeti, so it would be interesting to see them fence France in the team event. Fortuny is kind of a less good version of Mojtaba Abedini. He does some similar kind of slide step preparations and these low bounces on his long attack. They're kind of similar. His individual results aren't too amazing, but he is a reliable fencer in team events. I think one of the strengths of the Iranian team is that they have a very consistent team selection, which can potentially help avoid any dramas and can keep a consistent team dynamic. Baher is a good example of this. I think he is clearly the 4th fencer behind the other 3, but he's still someone you can rely on when you have to. He has been struggling to make the 64 this season, but he achieved his best result last season with a last 8 in Warsaw. This is Canada's first appearance in men's team sabre since 1996. The USA tend to dominate the Pan American zone, but this time that qualifying slot was freed up by the Americans qualifying as a top 4 country. As a team, they will be the clear underdogs. They will occasionally go toe-to-toe with the likes of Egypt or Iran, but in general, they really struggle against the top teams. Having said that, they can still cause some upsets in the individual event. They are also coached by Arthur Zetko, which means that half of the qualified teams here have French coaches. Charles Gordon is the only fencer on this team with prior Olympic experience. In Tokyo he lost in the first round. He is a solid fencer, generally finishing somewhere around the last 64. His best result so far is probably a last 8 at the World Championships in Budapest in 2019. On his day he can probably beat anyone in the world. It's just a question of whether he can win multiple tough matches in succession. Fares Arthur, I'd say, is probably on a similar level to Gordon. On his day he can trouble some of the top guys, but he has been struggling to find form so far this season. He's only made 1 second day so far, and that was in Seoul recently. Cochon is 24 years old. He's made a couple of last 64s this season. He's obviously going in as a big underdog, but he does have the advantage of being a little more unknown than a lot of the others. He also had a close match with Sameles this season, so maybe he could cause some trouble. The substitute for Canada will be 19-year-old Olivier Desrosiers. He's a fairly promising junior who's not quite made it on the senior circuit yet. Again, he has the advantage of being less known and maybe a bit less pressure on his shoulders. I think this could give him some vital experience as we look forward to Los Angeles in 2028. So that's all the teams. I'll try to do another one for the women and for the rest of the individuals too. It just kind of takes a lot of time. If you want to support these videos, joining the Patreon would be a massive help. Thanks for watching. See ya.